What is up, guys? Welcome to Gold Rush, a championship series companion podcast brought to you by the Run Out podcast. I am your host, Neil Barrett. This is Jackson Van Vleek, who's been with us most of the week. I'd say all week, but I missed an episode during travel. But otherwise been with us every week or all week. He is live from Springfield, Virginia, where he is actually at the championship series. Jackson, how we doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Neil?
Better than I was last night. For obviously inside baseball here, you guys won't know this, but Jackson and I normally record these podcasts at the end of the night when the games are over, everything's really fresh. And I texted him last night and was like, I just can't do it. I've been running so hard all week. I was like, I just can't do it. So we are actually up early in the morning on Monday. Not that early. It's about 8:30 now. So not that early, although you had a long night.
I did. Yeah. The fire alarm went off at about 1:30 this morning. So gonna push through and really excited for these two games today. So if that's the worst thing that happens to me today, it's going to be a good day.
Nice. Two things before we jump into the games. First of all, I wanted to, the PLL announced, much to my chagrin, having spent 2 months trying to build to this podcast and designing my entire branding for this podcast off of the now old trophies, as the PLL and WLL released new trophies for this championship series. You have actually seen them in person. What are your thoughts about them?
I'm going to set the over-under at, man, they're big. Probably 4.5 beers that they hold. So they're large.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't think the Champ Series trophy was my favorite. I really like the regular season trophy. I've also held that one, so I'm a little biased towards that one. But I think they're nice and definitely lend themselves to having a little bit of fun in the locker room for the winning team. So excited to see the change, and it's nice to have two of them that are very similar looking. They're almost identical with the exception of kind of the handles on the side. Mm-hmm. The women's one kind of takes its inspiration from the kind of winged part of the WL logo. So I thought that was a nice touch. And then the men's is very similar to it, just like kind of different handles. But it's cool to see the big, PLL and WLL logo kind of engraved into that trophy. So I think they did a nice job with it.
Yeah, you telling me that they're a bit bigger, because obviously the pictures don't really give you any context of size, did kind of help me come around to them a little bit. I know I seem to be in the minority here, and that's fine, but I wouldn't say it was like my favorite trophy in the history of sports, but I kind of liked the old championship series when I thought it went with the PLL trophy, but it's kind of its own thing. I thought they did a decent job of straddling that line. I can understand the thing I didn't love was the like brassy, like painted gold rather than like a shiny gold element. But that aside, I liked them. I was not really a fan seeing the new trophies, but again, you saying that, and then part of me has wondered if to maybe eliminate some confusion, if they rebrand this as like the PLL Cup or the Champions Cup or something, just to kind of, because the championship series was that the 2020 season, and
yep.
There's just so much confusion around the names and all that. And I wondered if this was them kind of beginning to maybe rebrand the championship series as some kind of, like the NBA has that in-season tournament now. And I'm pretty sure they call it like the NBA Cup or something. I don't know. But yeah, so Interesting. Just wanted to get your thoughts on that. And then the second thing I wanted to do before we talked about the games was give you some time to talk about what happened after the semifinals yesterday. For anyone who doesn't know, the PLL assists put on an HBCU All-Star game, both a men's and a women's All-Star game that took place after the semifinal games yesterday. It was, to my knowledge, not televised. I'm pretty sure it wasn't televised. I didn't see it anywhere. And the only clips I saw were of people there, like on their phones. There was no, broadcast clips of any kind that I saw. So being there, getting to hang out with some friends and watch those games, I wanted to hear about it basically because anyone who doesn't know, I grew up in the area of several HBCUs. I thought I would end up going to one of those HBCUs, so I've always been really in on it. But yeah, give us the thoughts and impressions.
Yeah, no, it was really well done. They had the PLL and WLL crews reffing the games. So it was a very elevated experience. And man, there was a bunch of talent on both sides. I missed the roster introductions and I didn't take notes, but number 18 on the yellow team for the men was wearing these bright pink cleats. You couldn't miss them. And the kid, golly, I mean, he was trying to be on TLN or something because it was just highlight after highlight. And then there was number 1 on the black team, who they interviewed after the game. I can't remember his name either, but he absolutely put on a show. And then come to find out, he is a freshman, so super, super talented. It's very high skill, and the game, it was very reminiscent of a PLL game where it was very up and down and a lot of transition and talent and skill, and really the same on the women's side too. There was the women's game was actually very close and kind of like a WLL game. It was a little slower through the first 3 quarters, but man, that fourth quarter they really picked it up and.
Like you said, just like a game.
Yeah, the energy in the crowd was awesome. DJ Ralph was absolutely killing it on the playlist in the background. They were treating it a little bit more like an NLL game where there was a little bit of music kind of going on all the time, which I thought was great. And you could tell that everybody was into it. Like I said, great energy in the crowd from the players and the coaches. I got to speak to a few of the women's coaches after the game ended, and man, they were so appreciative of what PL Assist was doing, because those girls work so hard, and I believe he said that they were kind of dealing with some funding issues. So for the PLL to take this stand here and really advocate for them was really, really cool to see. I wish people would have stuck around a little longer towards it. And to the defense of the fans, the women's game ended at about 10:30. So you had to stay 2.5, 3 hours after the men's game ended.
And if you had been there, if you had been there for the WLL game, that's a full 12 hours after the WLL game started. So
yes, but like I said, super well done, super talented, and well worth staying around for. And hopefully I can come back again next year and they'll be here again. So I think there were some clips posted by PLL Assists. So there should be a few highlights around there. Like I said, most of the PLL social team was kind of hanging around there too. So it was really awesome.
Just before we move on, you said 18 on yellow, or was it black? What were the two? Okay, 18 on yellow was Errol Tucker. I hope I said that right.
That sounds familiar.
He's from Morehouse College I believe that's in Atlanta. And then what was the other one? You said 1 on black. Is that what you said?
1 on both teams were actually both really, really awesome. Those two stuck out to me.
one on black. The black team was called Legacy. Number one on black was Charles Hatton. He's from Howard University in Virginia. The yellow team was Excellence. Number one for them was Derek Green Jr. He's from Coppin State. So just so we can shout them out and, applaud their play. Also, just real quick.
Funny thing to me, and this is just something that I noticed, they were reading the lineups for the women's team, and whichever the green team was, I think that was the Magic, had 4 number 25s, which I just thought was hilarious. I was like, who said that was okay?
Oh, yeah. The roster says 3, but yeah, maybe one of them changed. Yeah, no, that's weird. But I guess because my understanding of these is that all of these players play in the NCL, the next level or collegiate lacrosse. I'm totally butchering that. I should know this better. But yeah, this seemed to be all made up of players from, again, it was an all-star game of the NCL league. And so, yeah, I would guess, they were 25 for their team. So they just slapped the 25 on everybody. That's funny. I wouldn't have noticed that otherwise. I'm looking. Yes, they do appear to have had some content. This looks like kind of PLL content up on, or content makers up on, recording stuff for them. Yeah. Yeah, there goes number one in black scoring. That was pretty nice. Anyway, we will move on. But that was a pretty fun, cool thing. The only thing I thought, kind of what you were pointing out, was why did they do it at the end, especially when you had this big giant break in the middle of the day? Like, why couldn't we have played that in between the games? They weren't being televised either way. So,
Right.
But all that to say, just a great event. And like I said, I wanted to give you a chance to talk about it because I thought it was pretty cool. So with that being said, let's move into the WLL games where the Charging defeated the Palms 18-11, and we'll move on to face the Boston Guard in today's, I wrote those notes yesterday, in today's championship game. You were there. What were your kind of feelings? That crowd looked amazing for that game.
It was incredible. And I don't know. I mean, the story of the day was it was the Charging's day, and it was not the day for the Palms. I mean, I can't tell you how many pipes the Palms hit. And I mean, Doucette. I think set the record again with 21 saves.
Yep.
And Emily Harris-Chuck was, I think, 7 for 7 shooting.
Yep. 7 for 7.
Just a monster day. Killed my prediction of Meg Carney winning the Golden Stick. But yeah, the Palms just couldn't get anything going. I mean, they were just off, and kind of like I talked about yesterday, riding with a little bit more experience on the Charging, and I think it definitely helped down the stretch. And we're on the back end of a long and pretty physical and mental draining week. So the Charging just kind of had a little bit more seasoning there, and I think that's what they really rode to the end there.
Yeah. First of all, Madison Doucette, 21 saves, I believe, is just a championship series record. Like PLL, WLL, I think that's far and away the record there. And then, Emily Harris-Chuck with 17 goals. You might as well hand her that award now. Like, I don't think anyone, I'm going to say that, and then someone's going to drop 9 goals and beat her by 1 or something. But I mean, she's so far and away. 7 goals, I think, would be a WLL record for goals in a game. But I'm like you. Nothing worked for the Palms. We've talked all week about making your own luck, and I certainly think the Charging did a lot of that, was in the position to capitalize on things. But I also just felt like, the in the first half, the Palms had 11 turnovers. About half of them were caused, which means there were so many just simple exchanges that they were just throwing out of bounds and stuff. They ended with 19 turnovers. In the second half, 7 of their 8 were forced turnovers. So, that kind of goes back into the Charging making their own luck. But I just thought the Palms, they weren't having any of those luck elements. And then I thought their shooting was just awful on the day, whether that was tiredness or what. Like they couldn't score. And part of that is Madison Doucette. But there were so many of the shots that were shot straight into her body. She didn't move. She didn't do anything. It just hit her or, went, right to her stick. And it was like, she didn't have to work to make a lot of those saves. She's in the right position. She's doing what she's supposed to do. So like, I'm not trying to take credit from her, but they also weren't making her work to make those saves at all.
Yep.
I thought probably the best thing that the Charging did all around was the Palms are clearly at their best in transition. Taylor Moreno makes that save, gets it upfield, probably to Ali Mascherani, but they had several people that were capable, and that getting up and down the field was the Palms' strength, and part of the reason why I think most of us thought they had a pretty good shot in this game, because 6 is such a heavy transition game. But I don't know what it was. Taylor Moreno wasn't making super clean saves. A lot of saves she's making and then has to like bend down and pick up the ball or whatever. And then of course Madison Doucette was making some saves on some of those really impressively. So yeah, like you said, it just wasn't the Palms' day in any way at all. That's kind of it. That was such a simple game. Everything just worked like it. That there's not a whole lot to talk about. The Charging just had everything go their way. They did everything right, and the Palms didn't, basically.
That's what it boils down to for sure.
So they will move on to face the Guard today. I think I'm sticking with the Guard. I have no reason to doubt them. As good as Charging has looked, they have played. I looked back at the schedule. Today will be their 4th game in 4 days. They played Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and now they will play Monday. In that time period, the Guard will have played twice. This is the Guard's 2nd game. So yeah, they had the rest yesterday, but they also have an additional day of rest that the Charging don't have. And I just think that'll be too huge of a factor. We've seen every team on both the men's and women's side that had that day of rest came in, and I mean, even the Whips, they had a day of rest and came out and went up like 7-2 or something. And we all know what the Whips are. So I don't think that day of rest can be understated. That being said, I'm not counting the Charging out at all. They're very capable. But I think I wrote down Guard win 18-15 is what I got.
I think I'm going to stay with my Charging pick. I mean, kind of a win like that is a great confidence booster. And obviously, I don't think you can expect 21 saves out of Madison Doucette today. But I think she's going in there with a lot of confidence. Emily Harris-Chuck is on another level right now.
Insane.
And then, I mean, even if they make a game plan to limit her, you still got Izzy Skane, McCarney to kind of pick up the load. So I'm going to stay with the Charging, and I think Emily Harris-Chuck's lead on the Golden Stick is too big. So she'll
insurmountable.
Probably, even if she gets 2 or 3 goals today, I think whatever. Even if we see a new PLL record for goals, I think she's just too far from the rest of the pack for that. So I'm going to go charging. I'm going to go 17-15 overtime game. So I'm going to say it ends 14-14 regulation and goes 17-15 charging.
You know what? Overtime is such a bold prediction that even if the score's wrong, if it goes to overtime at all, I'm going to count that as a win for you, because it's just such a bold prediction to be like, yeah, we're going to overtime. So speaking of overtime, that's a good transition there. We'll move to the PLL game where the Cannons beat the Atlas 24-23 in overtime. If my memory serves me correctly, that's the first overtime game this championship series, right?
It has been, yeah. And it was funny because I was sitting with a few folks and I was like, man, we haven't seen overtime yet, at that point it's 22-19 with a minute and a half. I'm like, man, would love to see this one go to overtime. And, partially as an Archers fan, get beat up and worn out. But, just to showcase that overtime rule set, which I think was perfect. I mean, obviously, if the game had gone a different way, the Cannons would have wished, that it was golden goal again, because they did score the first goal in overtime, which was their first lead of the game.
Yeah.
And it was absolutely electric, and throughout the game too. Before the game, they interviewed a bunch of little guys in Atlas jerseys, and Stephen Brooks' son was among them, and Jesse with the PLL kind of stuck the mic in his face, and he did awesome. I mean, he didn't offer a ton in the way of X's and O's, but man, he got that crowd pumped up. And then there was a pretty good contingency of Boston fans as well. And really in the second half, it was palpable. I mean, there were defense chants from both sides, and I really do think that had an impact on both teams. Where they kind of felt the crowd was behind them. I think it was very split, but both teams made it sound like it was a home game for them. And Coach Holman actually came around the kind of little restraining barrier on the field, and you could tell that he knew that the crowd was the reason they won that game, and spent several minutes thanking people and hyping up the crowd. He said, "That's 2 in a row because of you." And so I think it can't be understated the impact that the crowd had on it. As an Archers fan, I don't know exactly how well we traveled. I'm sure there's a few folks and some parents, so we're gonna have to get together today and kind of make our own little section. But it definitely can't be understated the impact that the crowd had, across the game.
I have to say, as much as I'm ready for us to experience some new venues for this event and spread the love around, for lack of a better term, you can't argue with how good of a venue it has been. The only kind of complaint I've ever heard about them is that the playing surface is not amazing, but every other aspect of that venue has been great, and they get a good crowd out there, and the crowds are fun, and it gets loud in there, and I don't want to see those elements gone if and when it moves to a new location. That may end up happening, but before we get into the last, let's say, 6 or 7 minutes of that game, let's talk about the first, whatever the math ends up at. I guess it's never mind. I'm not even going to try to do it. But
I think it's the first
everything
28 minutes maybe, or 30 minutes before the last two. Well,
yeah,
I do want to bring this up too. Miles Jones was on one yesterday. He was on one in every way you can be on one. So the Atlas came out of the tunnel first, and Miles Jones stood at midfield and watched the cannons come out, and I couldn't tell who he was mean mugging, but there was something that they were playing for that day other than to make it to the championship. He was fantastic yesterday. I mean, what did he go? 5-2 or something on 100% shooting.
Yeah, 5-2 on 100%. Yep.
Yeah.
No, you know what? He missed that 2 in overtime, so he didn't finish at 100%, but he was at 100% until that shot. But yeah, no, I noticed that too. One, because he played like that. He played like, no one's going to stop me. I'm going to do whatever I want. But also, as someone who's followed Miles for a really long time, there was the interactions with opposing teams, and there was a little bit of like chippiness, kind of going at guys, not being afraid. There was one play. It was sort of like the Matt Moore hit, and we don't have to get into that hit, but sort of like that, where there was a hint of maybe some leaving it in there a little bit on someone, and I think almost instantly he kind of realized like, oh, I better chill out and not cost us a penalty, because a split second later he kind of grabbed the guy and was like, hey, my bad or whatever. But I could tell, again, as someone who's like followed Miles fairly closely for a long time, I could tell that there was just something about him that was, like you said, he was on it in all aspects of the ways that you can be on it. So, but yeah, he comes out of that game as probably, other than what went down at the end, as probably the kind of headline of that game and any other result. And he is the story of that game.
Yeah, the energy in there was just palpable. I mean, from the opening faceoff, I looked at somebody and I texted one of my buddies. I said, this is going to be just kind of a knock him out, drag him out, heavyweight bout, where as an Archers fan, I'm thinking, man, that's great. We're going to get a beat up and bruised team, and especially going into overtime, they got four more minutes on their legs, but it was a really, really awesome game to be there for. I don't love the football tackles from Asher. I don't think there's a place for that, and there should be an additional penalty for that. The second one in particular, the one that kind of started that fight, he was hanging on the guy before the timeout was called, but then continues to take him down to the ground. And obviously, I think Miles was the first one to get there, but the Atlas did take exception to that, which I agree with. There's got to be some kind of, separate penalty for that, where, there's one thing to like a hard foul in basketball. There's another thing to, try and, Asher's how big, 6'4", 2 something, upper twos, putting all that weight on somebody, especially on this, St. James turf, is not a recipe for success.
That was my thought on that whole thing. Was it's one thing if it's a lacrosse play that's after that timeout whistle. If it's, you're still playing defense and you slash him or something. If it's some kind of lacrosse play, I get it. The timeout happened. This is basically null and void. But like, the timeout shouldn't negate you tackling somebody, like,
absolutely.
And I tweeted out, all the calls that were missed on him, because they were not calling it the other way. When it was Asher getting manhandled basically all game, they called one on him. and then missed like 3. But he got basically all of those calls back in that one instance. I don't think he can complain about not getting a call at all during the championship series, because I'm like you, I couldn't believe when they went and looked at it and then came back and were like, no, it was all fine. I was like, there's no way that can be the ruling. That's insane. And I'm not a fan of either of these teams. Like that, I'm not, I don't know. One more thing real quick, because that kind of leads into the ending. I wanted to specifically shout out Kobe Smith and Tyler Carpenter, who both, what? I don't know. Who both, I thought played outstanding defense on Asher.
Yeah.
Those two, the two poles who obviously are playing with shorties, I thought played Asher better than I've seen pretty much anybody play them. Razanka, Camizio, anyone else who got on him were the ones that were just like manhandling him. But those two put body into him, played positioning, and I thought played excellent. Tyler Carpenter not only did that very well. Kobe Smith, I think had a goal or several points or something. But Tyler Carpenter stood out also on the offense. He had that interception that he took down and scored. He
late in the game.
Yeah, he reminded me a lot of some of the Archers guys that we've talked about, those defenders who have been heavy contributor, at least in this game. I don't know that he's done a whole lot the rest of the series, but at least in this game, he definitely looked like one of those guys. So I wanted to shout those two guys out specifically because I thought they played. I couldn't believe how well they were playing defense on Asher. Like, it was noticeable, bodying him up, staying in front of him. They looked like elite NBA defenders in terms of like how they were guarding without fouling, putting him off on his shots and eliminating him from even becoming a passer. They did so well. But with that being said, I guess it's time to talk about how this game ended. It started with that Asher play, which is another part of this whole thing to me, is like, there should have been a penalty there anyway. And we probably don't get to this, to what ended up happening. That's kind of step number one.
Yeah.
Then Jeff Traynor comes out of the box and hits a 15, 17 yard
from the parking lot.
Yeah, like part of me wanted to be like, you got to play better defense there. But also I'm like, nobody's expecting Jeff Traynor to pull up from midfield. Like,
yeah.
I can't really blame the defense. I think you'd maybe say Liam Intamin should maybe do better, but that high bouncer, that's why every youth coach in America will scream constantly about bouncers. Even arguably the best goalie in the world will be beat by bouncer. It's part of the reason that the Dobson save in the championship 2 seasons ago is so impressive, because it was on a bouncer that bounced, a foot in front of him. It could have easily hopped over a stick. So,
and on a slick field on that one too. I mean, that's the shot that you want to take there. Obviously, turf is slightly different, especially indoor turf. But yeah, I mean, for him to come out, first game, real action. He's been hurt all week. Was wearing a thick, and it looked like there was some taping under it, but it also looked like a thick leg sleeve. And I meant to send you a picture, but I mean, he was fully embracing the, black accessories, gritty.
The Emily Harris Chuck look.
He was the only guy on the field wearing black elbow pads, in addition to his black cleats. So it was great. I, as an Archers fan, have nothing but love for Jeff Traynor. And it was really cool. Actually, somebody tweeted a video where he had, cleared out probably, a 5-foot diameter circle of snow on a field and was just working on that distance from it probably wasn't that far, but he was working on that this week, and for that to come full circle was really, really cool. I agree. Intamin probably he needs to save one of those. The one from Verdaro afterwards was right on the line, but
yeah, that's the one I thought he should have got.
It was a lower angle, so you kind of and I don't know the first thing about being a goalie, but to me, it was a lower angle, so you have a little better of an idea of probably where it's going, and but we can also talk about so they score that the Jeff Trainer 2 with 35 seconds left on the clock, maybe, something. And go down there and I guess this is something that you would talk about, and I don't know what the right answer is here, but you almost think, okay, well, let's run it down all the way, make a point to put it in the absolute corner, and then face guard everybody and ride. And if you give up one, then it's a tie. Then you hope that your goalie makes a save on a 2. They ended up getting the ball back with 9 seconds. And just happened to kind of have the right personnel on the field. I don't remember who touched it first, but it went to Asher, then to Matt Campbell. And I mean, kudos to the Cannons players for knowing they needed a 2 there, with 9 seconds left and being aware of what the score was. But, Matt Campbell makes a great pass to Alex Verdaro, absolutely steps into one from, 2 inches behind the line and just beats Intamin. And you can notice visible frustration, even taking a few seconds to kind of hit himself in the head before he picked up the ball after the first one. And so I don't know if he was a little bit rattled. And I mentioned to you before the game, he was just off for a little bit before the game, and was kind of screwing up some inside shots maybe from about 7 yards, and Coach Brooks warming him up, kind of does like this and tells him to breathe. And so I didn't know exactly how, that was going to affect him. It didn't affect him at first, but I do think in the back of his head, he's thinking, man, I gave up that first one. Do not give up the second one. And when you're afraid to make a mistake, that tends to be when those mistakes happen. And so unfortunately for him, as well as he played, during the, regulation period, he just gave up 2 pretty tough ones there at the end. And then going into overtime, I mean, Colin Kearse was absolutely phenomenal. I think, and it seemed to me that the Atlas game plan changed from regulation to overtime, where they were kind of hunting some outside shots. And I'm thinking, like, you have a Miles Jones on your team. You have, a Xander Dixon, and you have a Brian Costabile that can kind of get to their spots, and Xander not as much as a ball carrier, but gets inside. If you get Xander Dixon within 6 yards of the goal, I mean, you think that's probably a 70-80% shot. And they seem to just abandon their game plan. And they were, I can't remember who I heard the other day talking about wanting to make a 20-point play, but the Whipsnakes always talk about it, where you go down there and hit singles. And obviously that was part of my thing was, I don't think until those last 2 minutes, I don't think, although the game was never out of hand, the Cannons were always kind of in it. I don't think that anyone really felt like they were in danger of actually winning the game. The Atlas, to your point earlier, had basically the perfect formula. They were getting good play out of Intamin. Miles Jones was playing out of his mind. Defense was working. Everything was going. And again, it was never really out of hand. I think they were only ever really up 3 or 4 goals at most. But you also just never felt like that the Cannons were really in it, not in terms of trying to win it. And then, like you said,
Intamin, even though I think the second two was the more savable, was the one that you think, okay, he's got to get that. He did. I noticed the same thing you did when Trainer's bounce went in. He got on himself. He clearly thought he should have saved that. And then, I don't know, like you said, if that affected him or not. On the second shot, the one thing I say, mild correction for you, the Atlas, the shot, the shot clock was off after the Jeff Trainer shot, when they went down, the shot clock was off. So they could have just held the ball and ran out the time. And obviously in retrospect, that would have been the, quote unquote correct play. However, people are going to hate me for this. I'm going to get so many people that tell me I don't know ball. I don't think it is ever a bad idea to score a goal. Never.
No.
The only thing, assuming it's a legal play, the only thing that cannot change in a game is the scoreboard. I never feel like it is a bad idea to score a goal. The issue for me, and if as a coach, this would be what I would say to my players: it's not the goal that's an issue. It's not giving them the ball back. It's everything after. So I've watched this play several times. When they bring the ball, when Atlas brings the ball down, they leave two guys up at the midfield line. It's basically I forget who all was on the field. Costabile scored the goal, and then there's two guys. Essentially, the three guys were kind of attackmen. They were the one pushing the play, and then the two kind of midfielders were standing up at the midfield. And the idea was clearly, we are preventing a turnover, a missed shot, a shot that it ends. We're preventing them from getting back up the field. That was clearly the game plan. The issue, I think, was that when Costabile scores that goal, I think there was that moment of like, oh, we just won the game, and they shut off for half a second, and the Cannons did not, and took off down the field and created a 3-on-2 that then became a 2-on-1 that left Vidaro open. So my thing is, there's all of that in the last 10 seconds, even after that goal, that could have, if they play slightly better defense, if Liam Intamin makes that save, we're not having this conversation. It's not really a debate. People might go, oh, it's weird he took that shot when he could have just held the ball, but like, whatever, it doesn't matter, which tells me that it's more about the result than about the goal. Sure. The goal is only a problem because of what happened after it. And then, like you said, the entire overtime, I was like, what? Again, I feel like I morphed into an Atlas fan, even though I'm not an Atlas fan, because I was watching this and I'm like, what in the hell are y'all doing? Miles Jones touched the ball one time in the 4-minute overtime period, and it was during a simple exchange of them just passing the ball around. Xander Dixon seemed to be the main initiator, which why?
That's not his game.
No, I don't remember. He probably did. I don't remember Brian Costabile doing anything. Again, he might have had some touches in exchanging the ball. I don't remember him dodging. I don't remember him doing anything. The guys that were taking shots were like Peyton Rozanka and Chet Comizio and all these. And it's like, and again, like you said, they were clearly hunting twos after having built this whole game on singles, on getting to the goal and hitting singles. And it was like, what the hell? So for me, people are blaming Brian Costabile's goal on the Atlas losing. But for me, it's the entire 4 minutes and 10 seconds that happened after the goal.
Yeah.
I was so, and again, Cannon scored one goal in overtime. One. I'm willing to bet that there is not another 4-minute period in that game where the Atlas didn't score at least one goal.
Yeah.
And yet completely abandoned their entire game plan. So again, I had a few people debate me on Twitter because I said that I never have a problem with a player scoring a goal, and telling me that I was wrong. And maybe I grew up and went to college in Arkansas 20 years ago when Pulaski High School won 9 national state championships, never punting, always onside kicking. Like they just never. So maybe that has just like seeped into my brain too much. Too many Madden games that played where we just never punted. We never did anything. But my thing is, I'm not afraid to lose. I know that might sound crazy in a tournament. I feel like being afraid to lose is when you lose. This is a football reference that doesn't exactly carry over, but we always said a prevent defense only prevents you from winning. So, I have no problem with a goal being scored as long as you cover everything on the back end, which is what they didn't do.
Right.
Oh, are we back?
Yep, I got you.
It's me. It's actually giving me the signal on my end that my internet is bad. So, I'll cut that out. So, sure. So yeah, that was kind of my frustration. Again, like I said, I thought they got everything they would have wanted out of their team, and then in the last 4 minutes and we'll say 6 minutes of that game, just completely gave it all up. So,
yep.
So that leads us into today's championship game between the Cannons and the Archers. I'm not even sure we have to ask you who you think is going to win.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not even. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Where does Asher stand now on scoring points? Because that will affect my golden stick, I think.
Let me. Internet.
I'll just say this: if the gap is less than 3 or less, I'm going to take Mac O'Keefe to win the golden stick. Obviously, my Archers are the pick to win. But I think if it's 4 or more, I don't know. The thing about this Archers team is they have so many ways that they can beat you. I added it up yesterday. The other guys, so Bon Mar, Pedersen, and Woodward, have 29 points through 3 games. So you're getting about 10 points a game out of them. I don't think that trend ceases to exist today. I just don't think, and obviously, the Cannons have now played, I think, just 3 games in 4 days, or maybe 2 games in 4 days, but it's the same for the Archers, and they got that day of rest yesterday. I mean, that game yesterday between the Atlas and Cannons was really chippy, so I think a lot of people are probably going to be dealing with some nagging things and some soreness. Not that the Archers aren't dealing with that too, but they've now had a day to kind of address that. I do remember Brian Holman saying that Marcus will be a game time decision today. I don't think that matters. So I'm gonna. I don't know. I think either way, I'm just gonna be bold and go ahead and predict Mac O'Keefe to win the golden stick and the Archers to come away with the first PLL double. I'll be interested to see if Matt Moore dresses today, and if he does, who picks up that last spot between Morrill and Van Overbeck. yeah, we've talked about my pick would be Vano, but obviously I do not have two PLL championship rings. They pay somebody to make those decisions, and his name is Chris Bates, and I will fully trust in his decision today. Now, if he starts tomorrow and we lose, then I will, in the back of my mind, be like, well, maybe if you would have started Vano, we would have come away with this thing. But no, I think the world of Chris Bates and Coach Brian Cavanaugh. Very ready to accept that they're going to put the best 12 on the field, and if we lose with that 12, then we just got beat on our best. So
we have come.
If I had to take a score prediction, I am going to go 27-23 Archers.
Okay. I like that. That's solid. We have come quite a long way from Bates gonna Bates.
Yes. And I think I was pretty public on Twitter about that after 2022 when we lost to the Chaos for the third time because they double pulled our midfield, and somehow or another we were not prepared for that. But it's not even that we hadn't drafted well before that. I mean, obviously you get Amen in 2020. There really aren't that many guys from that class that are still playing. And then in 21, we pick up Matt Moore. And then obviously we pick up Matt Moore and Brett Dobson in that draft. And then in 2022, I'm trying to remember who we picked in 22.
Was that Sis?
I think that was that was 23.
Okay.
22. No, because we had Trey LeClaire in 21 too. I'm trying to. I'll have to go back and look at who our draft picks in 2022. But really, in that 2023, obviously Sis, you get Bond and Marr, and then in 24 you get Pedersen and Woodward. So he's really hit on these last two, and I think even before that too. But to finally get over the hump. It's not Bates. It's going to Bates in the playoffs. I think we're well past that, and I think it can't be understated what Nick Washuta has meant to this team today, or this week. He's been very, very good in a spot where if we were to have lost games, it would have been we brought too many defensive guys and we don't have our starting goalie. We're the only team in the championship series to be without our starting goalie during the regular season. So he's stepped up, and I've gotten to interact with him on multiple occasions, and he couldn't be a nicer guy. So happy to see the success that he's having, and he really is having a great championship series. So hopefully come out sharp and play a great game today.
I feel like I need to do a little bit of an explainer for anyone who wasn't an Archers fan. The saying Bates gonna Bates was a thing in the Archers fan community for a while after the first few seasons, where it just always seemed like at the end of a game or especially a season that somehow we were going to be our own worst enemy and lose games for no real reason.
The roster was just too talented to not have made, to even have made a final. And I think really we only made one. We made the semis, and we lost the first round in 19. I do think we made it to the second round in 2020 in the bubble. And then, just in 2021 and 22, run into the Chaos in the playoffs and get double pulled with, Holman and Manny, and, weren't able to overcome that. And so obviously, in 2023, we let those two walk, bring in Mike O'Keefe, elevate Connor Fields from a midfield spot to an attack, full-time attack spot. And, some Archers fans were like, "Oh yeah, we won. We didn't have to play the chaos in the playoffs." But then really to silence or what is perform an exorcism? I don't know what the word would be there, but excise that ghost and really hold them to 1 point in the semifinals this year. I think we're definitely past Bates going to Bates. So
and in his defense, I think a very underrated part of the whole transaction is that as good a players as they are, and they are very good players, and most teams would want them on them, there was an element of too many cooks in the kitchen with that Atlas team in terms of who we're listening to. I mean, we've seen it all the time in those ESPN Plus huddle shots of like Will Manny and Marcus Holman and Adam Gettleman and other guys who had like a decent amount of coaching experience coaching in huddles, and nobody's listening to Bates. So we blamed Bates a lot, but I clearly there was at least some element of whether that was him, allowing it or those guys taking over or whatever. We don't have to get into all of that drama, but clearly kind of having one kind of focused voice has also done a lot for them. Back to the championship series at hand. You'd be crazy not to take the Archers. Like they've just been that team all tournament. There's absolutely no way. I think you pick anyone. You were right. The Cannons have played 3 games in 4 days. They will have played a back-to-back. So again, that day of rest, just like I talked about with the guard, I think the day of rest is just such a big element. So, I liked your 27-23. I don't want to go all Price is Right and one up you. I'll go 28-24 though. Is it closest without going over? I don't think we've ever established a rule set for that.
Yeah. Well, and I think maybe we can do, if you get one score right and the other person doesn't, then that's your winner.
Okay. All right. I like it.
Who do you like on the stick?
Yeah, I looked at it while you were talking. I didn't want to interrupt you because I didn't want to influence you. Not that it would have, because I think you picked Mac O'Keefe anyway. By my count, it appears to be Asher is at 17 and Mac O'Keefe is at 16. So
perfect.
Well within that range of tolerance that you had. And seeing that made me go, oh, I was pretty sure I was going to pick Asher, but now I'm like, oh, I don't know. Should I pick Mac? For the sake of being different, I don't think that you are wrong, but for the sake of having a different pick than you, I'll pick Asher. Again, it's been beaten like a dead horse at this point, but the playbook on Asher is make him a scorer, and to that extent, he's no one's going to bat an eye if he has 7 goals today. Like it's just going to be what he does. So again, Mac O'Keefe could have a very, very good day. He could have a 6-goal game. He could have a 7-goal game. They could both have a 7-goal game and Asher wins. So I'll go with Asher. He's got the lead and has no reason not to be a big scorer today. So yeah, I'll go with Asher.
Awesome.
With that being said, we will get out of here. The women's game starts in just a couple hours, and I know you got to get over to the arena for the game. So appreciate you jumping on, and we will see you guys tomorrow when we talk about the championships.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. See you guys tomorrow.